Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now Grand Theft Auto 5 released on PC back in 2015 and has been receiving updates ever since. In 2020 it still looks fairly decent with all the visual options turned up, and these days it takes even less to run it at 60 frames per second. Even entry level cards like the 1650 Super and 5500 XT should make pretty light work of this ever popular Rockstar masterpiece. Almost exactly 3 years ago, we tested the game as part of a video called Running Games with Their Minimum System Requirements, and found that the developer stated Phenom 9850 and HD 4870, along with 4 gigs of RAM, didn't exactly do a brilliant job of handling GTA 5, though the frame rate wasn't too different from the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 versions of the game. But what's the situation today? Well, I paired a Core 2 Quad Q6600 with a 9800 GT and 4 gigs of RAM to see whether or not this Intel and Nvidia combo could hit a 30 frames per second minimum. In the original video, I did go for an all AMD approach, though I received a few messages after the publishing of that upload from people telling me that their Intel and Nvidia combination handled the game with very similar results. So can you still expect 30 FPS at 720p with these now ancient parts, or have numerous game updates rendered this old school tech completely obsolete? Well, let's take a look. So you may have noticed the card I used in the B-roll was a 512 megabyte ASUS card. The minimum requirement states a 1 gig card, so believe it or not, I did find a 1 gigabyte 9800 GT under the bed. Before recording this, I didn't think I had one, but I managed to find one. It's amazing what old tech I have lying around. I don't think I've ever tested the 1 gig card before on this channel. Again, I can't remember. But yeah, another thing people often ask me is why do I go for older Intel parts and Nvidia cards as opposed to AMD? And the reason for that is because at least here in the UK, prices for older Intel and Nvidia parts seem to be quite a bit cheaper. For example, the minimum stated Phenom for GTA 5 is twice the price of the Q6600, and it's far more difficult to find. In fact, the only other ones I could find were coming from China or Germany, not to mention the price of motherboards too. So these components in combination, the Q6600, the 9800 GT and 4 gigs of RAM, which in itself is quite iffy in 2020, will achieve about 30 frames per second on average at 720p with GTA 5. Now I found the best way to test this out was to just drive around the map, causing mayhem. Different areas of the map will perform differently. If you're in quieter areas, you may see the frame rate shoot up towards 40 FPS, and in busier areas you may see it drop as low as 20. MSI Afterburner didn't want to work for whatever reason, sometimes it just happens, so all of the recording has been done externally, as it usually is, but with a Fraps counter overlay instead of the usual MSI Afterburner one. You can see it's a bit of a disaster. I mean, VSync was off and the settings were at their lowest, 720p with everything on normal, which is the game's lowest settings. And yeah, it's not a totally unplayable experience, I'll admit. As someone who used to play on the PlayStation 3, it doesn't look very good, and the frame rate isn't entirely smooth, but I suppose it is playable if you have these components lying around and you've just got an urge to play GTA 5. As we move into the countryside, as you can see, this cinematic shot went horribly wrong. I almost lost total control of the chopper here. So yeah, almost had a bit of a crash on our hands. Maybe this would have impacted the frame rate as well. But yeah, all in all, I mean, it runs okay. You don't expect 60 frames per second, even at 800 by 600, I wouldn't assume. 1080p is a no-go as well. I'm seeing about 20 frames per second. As for the AMD side of things, well, I can't be too sure, but I'd imagine that the 4870 would also perform quite closely. So I apologise for the shorter video today. Reason being is that I have a PC project in the works. We're actually building a minimum system requirements build for COD Warzone, so expect that video to be out very soon. I'll probably be testing a Dell OEM GTX 670 before then too. I love those old Dell OEM cards, so stay tuned. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.